What's going on, gang? This is the Roaming Prepper, and thanks for joining me. This is a little bit out of my normal, do my shorts in the morning, and then I'll do a couple of lives and a technical video. I normally don't do like a midweek newscast, but I got this summary set of emails from a variety of sources, both State Department and corporate and some industry type people. And this is all public release, public sector stuff, but it got to where I just felt it was appropriate to jump on and just throw this out there to all of you. As you know, by the time you guys see this video, we will have already had two mass shootings. So we had this knucklehead who they keep pointing out his dad ran against a Democrat, but the kid himself is called Awake the Rapper. Regardless of what his motivation was, they actually caught the little shit. He shot a bunch of people at a 4th of July parade in Illinois. At the same time, or shortly later on 4th of July, we had a mass or an attempted shooting. It was actually, somebody went after the cops. I believe it was in Philly or Pittsburgh. I'd like to say it was Philly on the East Coast, and I may be wrong there. This kind of stuff is going to start accelerating as not only are we dealing with the increased pressures of the inflation, fuel supply, goods, people losing their jobs, the whole 9 yards, but they're adding political fuel to the fire, and people are fighting about shit that really, at the end of the day, is not a reason to be fighting with people. And we're going to continue to see these fringe actors on both sides start lashing out. And unfortunately, we have a media that loves to spin garbage so that they can get more clicks. And at the end of the day, honest to God, I think it's all about money with the media. I don't think they give a rat's ass if we got Trump in his potty mouth or Biden and his whatever the hell he says, or whoever. They don't care. They need drama so they can get clicks. Clicks equals money, and that increases their influence. That's just my personal opinion. But we're starting to see that here in the States. This is not something we're used to per se, and it's not something we like. But the summary email I got, this information I'm getting from overseas, is from countries that are normally not like this. And I have a philosophy geopolitically. The smaller developing economies are always going to be the proverbial canaries in the cave, right? If something's going to take a shit, excuse my French, it can happen in a big country, right? Like Rona broke out in China, technically. But it's always the big countries can usually keep a handle on it, which the Chinese tried to. But once it starts hitting these developing nations and they start going into chaos, you know it's a problem. And normally you see the same culprits, right? You see the same countries that will take a dump and go, oh, you know, this is not good, or not. This little country is always like this. They're always fighting, or they're always having riots. But I saw a string of them that really caught my attention because I hadn't seen their names in these reports before. So in Africa, Senegal, they're about to have July elections. They're right now super pissed off because of lack of food, lack of fuel, etc. Protesting a court ruling recently invalidating a party candidate. These have already become violent, right? Now that's kind of in a small country out of the way. Indonesia, not a small country. Papua violence and unrest likely to rise. They have an issue with part of their country wanting to be independent from Indonesia. And so Indonesia's not letting them do it the way they had promised, and now they're rioting. So now these pressures are pissing people off. But then Iraq, government for getting ready for potential for civil unrest. A threat to the private sector. So private companies operating there trying to help rebuild Iraq, they can be in danger. Sri Lanka, another not small economy. These are not itty bitty little republics. These are significant, they're up and coming, growing, and significant regionally. Sri Lanka, shortages causing fuel insecurity. Fuel reserves in Sri Lanka have completely depleted. Get this. Wait times at fuel stations now averaging 48 to 72 hours, prompting altercations across the country. Only essential services are functioning. Airlines have successfully mitigated safety concerns by refueling in other countries. Think about that. So you get on a plane in Sri Lanka, it's probably got half a tank of gas because he has to go somewhere else to get gas. That jet fuel rather. That's not cool. Ecuador, a southern neighbor, not a small country, normally very quiet. Since June 13th, widespread unrest has closed roads and impacted private sector operations. The government has recently started to try to lift the curfew of Quito. Unrest continues, however. Another one from Ecuador. Indigenous groups are now protesting because of rising fuel pricing and the government economic policies, blocking of roads and instigating violence. And then now they're blocking roads and instigating violence. And they have gone from the rural areas where they live, these indigenous groups are now going into the cities, finding friends and causing civil unrest in the cities. So it's a little bit flipped over from what we saw in 2020, where it started in the cities and then tried to move out. It went the other way. But still, you don't normally see this. Then El Salvador was a big player in Bitcoin at one point. This report, and they have a report here, they are currently, although the recent Bitcoin crash has raised questions about the economic stability, they're assessing they might be able to hold it together with some help. But again, another small country. Then southern Mexico. The state of Chiapas in southeastern Mexico has long experienced incidents of violence. They're now seeing more between indigenous groups, and now we're seeing a rise in vigilante groups, similar to what they saw in Michoacan. So, and then Denmark reported an active shooter situation in the Fields Shopping Center mall. This is not stuff you normally hear, guys. This is not the kind of stuff that we see from Denmark, right? Or Ecuador, or Indonesia. There's always a little bit of instability. Somebody's always pissed off about something. But we're seeing it's happening everywhere, and it's happening at once. Now, you may be wondering, well, all right, so how the hell does that affect us, dude, right? So obviously, we're not, I'm not physically, I'm in Texas. I'm not physically in El Salvador. I'm not in Indonesia. It does affect business. It does affect commerce. Now, those of you who are really savvy with stocks and bonds, you may see that as an opportunity and say, hey, this company had just invested in the country. The stock's going to go down. I can try and grab some cheap and hopefully it'll come back up. There's always a risk there. But how does it affect us? Well, when you see these smaller countries, and these are not little baby republics, right? These are substantial countries. So Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Peru, Ecuador, Iran, Iraq. Iran's been having fuel riots for weeks now. Denmark right now, the farmers are pissed off because in order to conserve fuel, they decided they're going to shut 25-30% of their farms, and the people are flipping out. So it's a combination of stupid idealism and absolutely ridiculous decisions on the part of world leaders, and then just the pressures of the global situation. People are starting to lash out. We're seeing it in the States with the shooters. We're seeing it in these other countries like I just named. Those are public releases from the State Department, from corporate think tanks, if you will, folks that put out this kind of material. They got some really smart men and women in these companies, and that's why I love to follow them, because that's what they do. Their whole job is to risk assess for other companies, and they have to be right? They have to do their homework. Because if I risk assess and I screw up and you invest 10 million in another country and then, rebels come and burn all your shit down, I'm going to get fired. So that's why these men and women are so on the ball most of the time. They do make bad calls, but it's not in their interest to make a bad call. They have to be spot on because people are making very expensive decisions for them. We're going to continue to see that here, friends. We're going to continue to see as these smaller countries are going to start coming unraveled, it's eventually going to make its way up the food chain. It's going to start hitting the U.S., Europe, well, Russia and Ukraine are in a freaking war, so that could tell you something right there. I have a feeling that China's having a lot more problems than we know they are because they clamp everything down. It's only a matter of time before that starts spilling out, though. So all these little canaries in the cave are all reacting to something going wrong because their economies are not big enough, their governments are not big enough, their resources are not big enough to react accordingly. But again, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, these are not small economies. These are substantial economies. These are economies that are getting to the point they're going to start competing with the Indias, the Chinas, the US, the EUs. So that's substantial. What do we take from this, right? Folks, this kind of disruption will continue to screw with the supply chain. It's going to continue to screw with the way we have availability in the West. And most of my followers are either from Argentina, the US, UK, or Canada. That seems to be, and a few from Mexico. I do have a good following in Argentina, which I only recently realized. But what we need to do collectively, one, take a breath, right? Because freaking out is not good. And again, I've had some goofball channel called me and actually told me I was fear-mongering. And I said, I reported the news. How's that fear-mongering? I won't even shout out the channel because he's a dumbass. I actually reached out to the person and said, hey man, I've just some context here. Like, what's the fear-mongery part? Reporting what I read in the news and telling people, hey, here's a course of action you can take. And the person kind of gave me a really uneducated response. And I don't have time for that. So I kicked his ass off my channel and that's the end of that. So I don't give a shit if he sees this or not. Pendejo, I could care less. Anyway, things you can do. One, reduce your debt profile if you can. Now, these are all if you can do it type of situations, right? Don't try to do something that's going to hurt you in the long run. You got to make a judgment call. Everyone's situation is different. My situation is different from all of you. Hell, my brother's situation is different from me, and we talk all the time. So among the things you should do, one, if you can, reduce your debt profile. You can do that, and again, you may not be able to pay your house off in one fell swoop, but reduce credit card usage. If you can get your credit card to income ratio under 30%, I think, that really kicks your score up. So if you got some cards kind of lingering and you're paying the minimums, even if you can't pay it off, pay the minimum plus $5, pay the minimum plus $10. Anything you can to kind of push that debt away from you, right? Because the less leverage you are, the less risk you have if the economy tanks or banks start repoing or whatever. And if you're in a position you already paid off, then good, don't get into that. Two, don't panic buy. Okay, some of you know I have affiliate codes with like ReadyWise and Jace Medical, but that may not be a solution for you. It may not be in your budget, or you may not like it. That's okay. Find other options. Again, I've spoken about business concepts for prepping. The power of the buyer, right? Leverage your power as a buyer and say, wait a minute, my hard-earned cash, even though it's worth less now than it was 2 years ago, is not going to go to this product because it's too expensive, but I might find another route with it and solve my problem. Do that. Look for those out-of-the-box situations out-of-the-box solutions where you guys can move forward and be successful. Also, expect civil unrest. People are going to start freaking out. I'm already hearing reports, unconfirmed, that people are mugging each other for groceries. And that could just be a purse snatching that went wrong and the guy got the can of beans. I don't know. But people are going to get stupid like they always do. I mean, for Christ's sakes, we're in a society that's punching each other during Thanksgiving week, where we should be thanking God for our blessings because of cheap TVs in Walmart. I mean, so the bar in my heart is kind of low for some people. They just will become assholes spontaneously. Be prepared for that. Situational awareness. The folks at the parade, obviously some of them were not paying attention, but if you look at some videos, some people would stand up immediately and went, that doesn't sound like fireworks. That sounds like a gun. And they reacted. That's the person you want to be, right? You want to be the person who's paying attention. Look for deals. If you can find those economic deals, you can use the coupons. If you're going to buy in bulk, split it with other people. These are all ways of reducing your cost profile, right? So you have your debt profile, pay off anything you owe if you can, as fast as you can. Keep a little cash in reserve because you never know what'll happen. But also reduce your cost profile. If I can pay 5 cents an ounce for green beans, if I buy bulk instead of 10, that's great. But buying in bulk is more expensive. So if I can split it with 4 other friends, hey, now we're all going to get cheaper green beans. Just an example, but you guys kind of get what I'm saying. We're already seeing it. They're already rioting in other countries. Now, we're not rioting here because, believe it or not, we're still relatively stable compared to the rest of the world. The other thing we need to be mindful of is that as things unravel in other parts of the world, people will start lashing out at other countries. They will start lashing out at other ethnicities. So any anger people have over something that happened overseas, we may start seeing it manifest in our streets because we're such a diverse melting pot of people. Maintain that situational awareness, reduce your debt load, try to reduce your costs where you can, maintain your situational awareness, and also find those deals. Try to find the best way to stock up what you can and prep things you're actually going to use. If you find a new product and you're like, wow, it's on sale, this is really cool, but you've never had it before, open it up. Open one of the cans up and try it if you do buy it, and make sure it doesn't suck. If it sucks, you give it to someone else, trade it with someone, and collaborate. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Guys, collaborate. Now, I will tell you this. I'm starting to see all those misbehaviors that I'm getting reports from other countries are happening here. Aside from the mass shootings in the last couple of years, I would get one Amber Alert here in Texas, in my area. Maybe one a month, if that. And it's usually, Baby Jones is being sought to be recovered to her daddy because mom ran off with him, or the baby dad ran off with the baby, and it's usually like a domestic issue. I shit you not, my friends, in the last 2 weeks, I have literally seen 4 or 5 stranger abduction reports on the Amber Alert system, all of them young girls between 13 and 16. Every single one. Hispanic, black, Asian, white, didn't matter. Some dudes, I don't know what they're doing. They're grabbing up young girls. Please, please take the time to educate the young women in your family. And if you can teach them to defend themselves, even better. But that situational awareness in that is also key. So guys, we're going to continue to see this. But there are steps I gave you can take: the debt reduction, situational awareness, reducing your costs. Take those measures, okay? Folks, we just, now's not a time to freak. Now's a time to plan. And as I believe Texas Redleg put it, you make your plan and then you have to execute. We do it in the oil field. He did it in law enforcement. It's how you want to do it. So guys, that's it for this one. I know this is longer than I normally do for some off-the-cuff video, but I just wanted to throw that out there because there's a lot going on, and you guys can really benefit from just taking a minute and then starting to maneuver accordingly. So until next time, God bless, Godspeed, and I hope to see all of you again on my next live. Take care.